they watching, I'ma make them sweat. Put your money down, place your bets. Degenerate, yeah, I'm a sicko. Who else gon' get you to the window? I know they watching, I'ma make them sweat. Put your money down, place your bets. Degenerate, yeah, I'm a sicko.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Graybo's Giblets. This episode, we're going to talk about the Richmond Flying Squirrels, our AA local baseball team affiliate of the San Francisco Giants. And we're going to focus on not only prospects on the Squirrels roster that may be baseball cards you may want to purchase in the near future, but we're also going to talk about guys coming from other teams, other clubs coming to Richmond in the next month. And I'm pretty excited as a baseball fan and as a card head by the talent coming through Richmond in the next month. I have two very special guests. First, I have Marc Cheatham. Marc is a friend. He's a customer of Graybo's. He is the founder of not only the Cheats Movement podcast, which is a very popular podcast here in the Richmond area. It's been voted something awesome several times. I'll let you tell us what that is. And also the Black Baseball Mixtape podcast, which is a pretty interesting podcast. And I'm going to let Marc say hello and tell us maybe a little bit about both of those things really quick.
What's going on, Denny? One time, how you feeling?
Good, thank you.
No, I'm excited. The Cheats Movement has been around for nearly a decade here in Richmond, and it's all about community and just involvement and really supporting Richmond culture as best we can. I'm really, really excited. It has been voted a couple of times, not several, but a couple of times the best podcast or best blog in Richmond. And
it's pretty exciting. This got voted the 84th best podcast.
It's on its way. It's on its way. But I'm really excited about what's a project that's a little bit less than a year old now, and it's the Black Baseball Mixtape. And it's a national platform. It's an Instagram page. It's a community kind of Discord group chat, and it's also a podcast. And I think it's fair to say it is the fastest growing baseball podcast that focuses on Black players in every level of baseball. So not just Major League Baseball, but we focus on Black players that are in the Eastern League, which is the Richmond Squirrels Flying League. We've had a Richmond Squirrel on the podcast, and some of the the teams that they play. We've had some great guests, but really Black baseball at every level, from youth development all the way up to the Major League All-Star game. And we've been able to give all fans, insight into what's it like to be a Black baseball player and some of the challenges and tribulations that they go through, and also increase fandom in baseball among not just Black fans. Everyone listens to the Black Baseball Mixtape, but those that are really connected to Black culture and hip hop culture and some of the things that are really, really kind of taken control of our culture in America, kind of fits right into what we're doing over at BB. Really excited about it.
That's really cool. And for a new podcast, you've had some pretty big name guests. You just want to give us the top 3 or top 5 kind of big names?
Yeah, it's tough, but I would be remiss if I didn't say we've had amazing guests. We've had Dave Stewart from the Oakland Athletics, who's a World Series MVP, kind of Hall of Fame guy. We've had some really, really amazing top prospects. Justin Henry Malloy, who's in the Tigers organization, is in AAA right now and is knocking on the door. And we had a really cool thing happen to us last week. Our very first pro player is a gentleman by the name of Samad Taylor, got the call up last week and got his first major league hit for the Kansas City Royals, and he was a walk-off. So we are starting to see in a very short amount of time players that have been on the podcast, and when they're on the podcast, they might have been in AA or AAA, now getting the call up to the show. And we have a relationship with those players, and we're able to text them and congratulate them. And it's a surreal moment last week when I was texting a major league player after their first hit.
Dude, that's amazing. That's really cool. And then you had with Dave Stewart, is it Bip Roberts you had with them?
Dave Stewart and Bip Roberts. Matter of fact, I think I might have got my Dave Stewart rookie card here at Graybo's. But it was amazing. The Oakland Athletics announced that they were moving to Las Vegas, and obviously that had a lot of emotion surrounded around it, and still does. Mm-hmm. Dave Stewart is one of those legendary sons of Oakland, and so is Bip Roberts. And so they came on Instagram Live, of all things, to talk about things like their feelings about Oakland baseball and in the move to possible Vegas, and It's been a surreal experience to be
Yeah.
able to talk to legends like that or young folks and promote the game, and everybody's been really good to us.
That's great, man. Congrats on that success of that right out of the gate. That's really cool. Dave Stewart's really cool. Seeing him as a baseball fan growing up as a kid. Those A's teams are legendary with McGuire and Canseco and Dave Stewart, Eckersley, and Steinbach. Well, I can name the whole lineup. It's like 30 years later. Yeah,
Really dangerous team.
Yeah.
Those teams are really
Yeah.
dangerous teams.
Yeah, very fun. Very fun to watch. Well, cool, man. Thanks for joining us. And our second guest, Trey Wilson, the voice of the Flying Squirrels, who also is a closet card head.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Well, man, welcome to the pod. And why don't you tell folks how long you've been here with the Squirrels and how you got here?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of Cheats, so it's awesome to be sitting here with him.
My buddy, man.
Yeah.
Trey's my guy.
Friend
Yeah.
of the Squirrels. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing down here. Pop in every now and then. Even I popped in today before we started taping. I got a couple of current Squirrels that I found in the shop with Andy Thomas and Carson Seymour, a couple of Donruss Elite autograph cards. So that's pretty cool. I love that you guys have some Squirrels up there.
Absolutely.
So I've been broadcasting minor league baseball a little over a decade. I was with a Blue Jays team, Southwest Virginia in Bluefield. It's technically in West Virginia. And then with their low A team in Lansing, Michigan for a year. Spent 4 years with the Pittsburgh Pirates organization in Altoona, Pennsylvania in this league, coming to Richmond as a visiting broadcaster and being from not far from here. It was always a dream to get a chance to make this home in this career in baseball. You don't really get to pick where you go. So an opportunity to come home opened up. Going into the 2019 season, I jumped on it, moved down here. I'll be here for as long as they'll keep me. So, I broadcast the games for the Squirrels on radio and MiLB TV. You can catch if you have an MLB TV subscription now, you can watch our games on the Major League Baseball app, which is awesome on your smart TV, Apple TV, all that. When we're at home, when we're on the road, you can pull up the visiting team broadcast, mute it, and pull us up on 910 The Fan. But do that. I do the communications for the Squirrels, some graphic design, website, a lot of other stuff. And I'm a moderate card collector. I like to build the top sets. I'm working on 77 to today. Also picked up this Cal Ripken Jr. 1982 traded from y'all today. That finishes off all the 1980s for me. Pretty excited about that. And I'll grab some cards of the guys who played for the teams that I've worked for over the years. I've been really lucky to see some of the great stars in baseball playing on some of the teams that I've been with, including here in Richmond over the last few seasons since 2019. And nothing crazy, but if I see something out there, I'll grab it and I'll throw it in a box with all of my career alumni players. So
Awesome.
I'll find some in here every now and then too.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Like when I got back into the card game, I was a big collector as a kid, fell out of it for a while. When I got back into it, I had some feelings that kind of I found that I hadn't like found in me since I was a kid. And like the idea of prospecting to me is so cool. Like, just like you might want to invest in a startup company or a stock of a company that's gonna go somewhere. Like you can do the same thing with minor league baseball players. And I think that's just a really cool thing. And the fact, as a sports fan, it's literally right down the street.
Yeah,
I remember coming as a kid when it was the Braves, and I was collecting cards, and I came here and saw like Klesko, Tony Tarasco, Mike Kelly, all these guys that ended up going up to the big league. And I remember seeing them and like, I'm gonna go get their cards. And now as an adult, I'm literally just as excited about it. So, and I know you guys enjoy it too. And so let's talk prospects. Before we get into the actual prospects themselves, Cheats, I know you and your son like to go to the games, get there early, get some autographs. You want to just share with the folks, some of the folks you got autographs this year?
No, it's exactly what you said. It's
Yeah.
exactly what you just described. And I was in the same boat. I was out of card collecting for a while. And then my son Cameron, who's 8 years old now, last year said, hey man, let's get some baseball cards and see what it's all about. And it just got, he was in for about a month, and I've been in ever since. So, but it is a really, really fun exercise, and it's a fun thing to do with a father and a son. And what I mean by that is Cam has got the replica Squirrels jersey on, and he loves to get any player that he can find to sign his jersey. He walks around on the diamond now with just front to back jersey signs. And while he was doing that, I started looking at obviously our players on the Richmond Flying Squirrels and the ones that I felt connected to as well. And you start to look at some of the players on the other teams as well. Whether and the interesting thing is there may not always be the top prospects. We had an opportunity to meet and talk to Matt Frazier for the Altoona Curves, who's I think he's like number 25 on the list. everybody wants to talk to Henry Davis, who's obviously just made his major league debut. But, you ask to speak to a Matt Frazier or a Dylan Smith in Erie or a Carter Williams in Richmond, and they're wonderful people. They're so engaging. A lot of them have Bowman First cards that'll sign for you. So to answer your question, I do a little bit of both. I do a little bit of who do I think is a really cool guy. Just like I watch him play a lot, and I think Hayden Cantrell is one of the coolest players I've seen in a long time for the Richmond Squirrels. So I'll get kind of our favorite players, the Mike Gigliottis of the world, and then we'll also try to get the Luis Matos or the Marco Luciano or somebody that's going to be in the major leagues one day.
Right.
To answer your question, and I always text you. I text Denny one time all the time. It was like after I get a big card signed, I'll be like, "Hey, check this out." Yeah. But the Squirrels have been great to us. Luis Matos signed early. Marco Luciano signed for us. Just very friendly. Mason Black is always a person that's just always out there signing. And when Patrick Bailey was here, he signed a lot as well. Now he's in the pros. So, for the Richmond Squirrels wise, I will tell you, Simon Whiteman signs everything for the last 2 years. And I can't speak to every, I can't speak to even every Squirrels team. I know Trey can speak to more of them. But for the last 2 years, the Richmond Squirrels as a team has been, as a collective, some of the most friendliest together, like fan-friendly clubs I've seen for the last 2 years. And it's amazing because there's different players in AA that come in and out.
Right.
But the spirit of last year's Richmond Squirrels team and this year's Richmond Squirrels team are really community focused. They love, signing for fans and kids and doing just going that extra mile.
Parney effect?
Again, Parney's been here since the Richmond Squirrels. I think every club has its own identity.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years, I think this year, Trey might be able to speak more to it too. There was a lot of togetherness. There was a lot of familiarity with it, especially when the team started off this year. And last year was just a special group of guys. But that's Mason Black. Like I said, Black, Luis Matos, Matt Frazier, Dylan Smith. I went up. Me and my son went up to Fredericksburg the other day and got an Elijah Green sign. Right. That was just great. So it is for us now, and it's become a father-son thing. It's also become a family thing because my wife likes coming to the ballparks. But getting them to sign is just it's almost an indescribable feeling, and it may not be PSA certified autograph 10, but we don't care.
Right. That's not something you'll probably never sell. You probably keep that forever.
Yeah, we'll keep those forever.
Yeah. So the value is to you, not to the rest of the world. No, that's great. I remember as a kid, I grew up in Roanoke, and the closest team was the Salem Buccaneers, which was a single A for the Pirates. And so we didn't have as many studs come through there. We had like Moise Alou came through. That was a big one for us. And a couple of other, Tim Wakefield was there, but he was a first baseman. He wasn't even a pitcher yet when Tim went, because he learned how to throw a knuckleball warming up in Salem, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's get into prospects. So for those, first of all, I would love to timestamp this. This is we're in June in 2023. I want somebody to go back and listen to this in 2 years and see the names we say and then where they are in 2 years. And those that are new to prospecting, and you're like, where do I even start? Like, where do I figure out what baseball prospects I want to buy? I want to shout out a couple podcasts I listened to. One, the Sports Card Strategy, specifically their baseball episodes with Lefty McKee and Paul Hickey. I get a lot of content from those guys, and also Dinging Corners, which is part of the Slab Stocks podcast series. They do a lot of research for you, and they come to you and they say, I think these guys are going to, based on statistics and other factors, and they get their stats from a site called Fangraph, which is pretty cool. You can sort minor league baseball players by any statistical category, and there's so many stats out there these days that like are kind of proven to dictate future success. Nothing's proven, nothing's perfect, as you guys know. There's a lot of gamble in the prospecting game, but these tools make it a little more realistic and possible for you to pick some winners. So let's start with the Squirrels themselves, Trey. I know we got some studs there on the roster today. Let's start with the guy right at the top, the number 2 prospect in the Giants organization, shortstop Marco Luciano. Let's talk about him for a second.
Yeah, Luciano, he's an impressive player, that's for sure. There's this weird thing with prospects where, especially international prospects like Luciano is, when they sign at 16. So people are hearing their names from a very early age, and
especially if your last name was Acuna or Churia, or right?
Yeah. Well, Luciano's been the number 1 prospect. He just got jumped by Kyle Harrison, but 1 and 2. Both those guys are great. for such a long time that people are like, man, what's wrong with this guy? He has had some injuries, but I think that in this recent generation that some of the players, and we've seen some of them in the Eastern League, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And Juan Soto, they both came through this league. And then elsewhere around baseball, Fernando Tatis Jr. and Ronald Acuna Jr. And some of these players who've gotten to the major leagues, Wander Franco, they've gotten to the major leagues so young. They are rare talents to get there at 19, 20 years old.
Right.
We forget that Marco Luciano's barely 21.
Yeah.
And he's still, that's 3 or 4 years younger than the average age in this league. And so he's still got some things to work on. I think that the power is obviously something that people are really high on. So if that's something the fans love, go back to the 90s, chicks dig the long ball, right?
Always. Always. Greg
Maddux and Tom Glavine in that ad. And he's got that. That's for sure. One of the most impressive home runs I've ever seen. He hit it the other day. We were up in Bowie playing the Orioles affiliate. They'll be here in a few weeks. We'll talk about them soon. But he hit a ball that went 432 feet, which normally for him, that's just like whatever. But he hit it to right center. He's a right-handed batter. He went opposite field off the top of the scoreboard, 432 feet.
Wow.
I've not seen a lot of left-handed batters hit it out there that far. So, yeah, he's young for the level. He's still swinging and missing a lot, but the high A to double A level is a big jump. And we've seen a lot of the tools that make him the prospect that he is. He got up here for the playoffs last year. We got to see him for a few games. He missed the start of this season. So, we've seen a lot of the stuff that people get excited about, and it's every time he makes contact, it's so loud. And we have all the data upstairs where we are, so we can see the exit velocities and things like that. Right. It's not uncommon to see him 114, 115 miles an hour. I know in previous stops, 118 miles an hour. We're talking like Giancarlo Stanton level exit velocities up there pretty consistently. So if you like loud contact and balls going a long way,
he's your guy.
He's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen him play? You've seen him
I
play
have.
this year.
And I'll tell you the thing about Marco that stands out more than anything else for me is that the guy just looks the part.
Yeah.
When you have a baseball team in most levels, you kind of, maybe not too much in the major leagues, but because everybody kind of looks like a stud at that level. But when you can kind of
Pedroias at the minor league level, right?
But you could look around and say like some of those guys just look the part. Like that guy looks like a major league player,
right?
And Marco does. So Luis Matisse does, and a lot of them are proven us to our fans to be correct.
That's the thing. When you get to this level, you're facing a lot of guys who've been in baseball for a long time.
Yep.
You're not facing guys who are in their 3rd or 4th year of professional baseball anymore. Now they're in their 5th, 6th year of professional baseball a lot of times. And we've seen it. This is the make or break level. And we've seen it with Luis Matos. These are a bunch of guys who are now starring in the big leagues who were just here. Luis Matos, 20 years old. He's now the 2nd youngest player in the big leagues. He was just here a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Casey Schmidt is proving himself that he's probably going to be a star in the big leagues. He was just here at the end of last season. Patrick Bailey started this year here, switch hitting catcher, number 2 pick in the draft. Logan Webb is now the ace of the Giants. He wasn't here that long ago. David Villar is a guy who was never on any of those prospect lists, but he's having some success. So sometimes it's not even those top prospects. It's guys who they come to Double A. Villar came here and crushed the single season homer record, made it all the way to the big leagues without ever creeping into that top 30 prospect list. He's gotten to the big leagues and had some success. He had a home run. We're taping this on a Tuesday. He had a home run yesterday, a big one for the Giants. So, sometimes you see guys make a name for themselves here, and it's not just the Squirrels players. We're going to talk about some other teams soon, but we've seen Aaron Judge come through this league. We've seen Juan Soto. We've seen Vlad Guerrero Jr. You get to see some of the stars. Yeah, this is one of the cool things about minor league baseball. I grew up in a couple of minor league baseball towns. We didn't have a major league team close.
Yeah,
we went to Norfolk Tides games, went to Richmond Braves games, went to Kinston Indians games, and I was living in North Carolina. You get to see all these guys kind of become what they're going to be. You get to see them almost as like kids in the early parts of their professional careers. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and for me, minor league baseball, like any movie or TV show you watch is interesting because of the characters. And if you go to minor league baseball and you don't know any of the characters before you get there, it's still a fun time, but it's more interesting if you know who Luciano is before you go watch him play, in my opinion. And then when he gets called up, you feel like an attachment to that person. You're like, I was there. I was there. Yeah. I'm sure you even more because you watch him every day.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with these guys, get to know them. And that's one of the things we try to tell their stories on our broadcast and on our podcast. And plug ours, the Funville 9 podcast, driven by AAA.
Nice.
2 N's, Funville. But we try to tell, we don't talk on there about about their batting average. We tell their behind the scenes stories. We talk about their path to get to this point. And when you're meeting fans like Cheats or the one of the things, Cheats, you were talking about a minute ago was how gracious the team has been the last couple
Absolutely.
of years. That starts with not just with Parney, but with Dennis Pelfrey, who's the manager of the team. And he knew that when he came here that Richmond's a special place. And we're leading AA in attendance. You all know the complications with the ballpark, so it's pretty amazing on its own.
Yep.
But the fans feed off of that the energy locally, and they're told from the time they get here, hey, this is a special place, take care of these fans. So if you're showing up and you're coming out and you get to have that interaction with them, it's a special thing, and it's special for them too, especially if you're coming up and you're a kid or you're a fan and they know you're a fan and you want an autograph. That's one thing. Now, if you're coming in with the book and you've got like 25 cards there, they'll sniff that out. They'll catch you. They know.
I've seen those too. Yeah.
That's why Cheats takes Cam with her, right?
Yeah, Cam's a secret weapon of all secret weapons.
But they love to have those a lot of the guys, and not everybody's sociable. So everybody has different personalities, but a lot of them love to have that interaction with the fans, and then that's a story that you can tell forever, whether the guy becomes a superstar or not. You've had that connection.
Sure. Absolutely. So you touched on some of the guys that got called up already, and obviously talked about Luciano. Let's talk about any more guys on the current roster that you're excited about, maybe from a baseball card like investability standpoint. So I know you want to mention Vaughn Brown.
Yeah, Vaughn Brown kind of came out of nowhere. He's a great story, and we had a podcast episode with him lately, and we actually talked about his Bowman First card that's in this year's Bowman set that came out a couple of months ago. I saw some people online talking about his signature on there. It's he has a V, kind of like a square root sign. So his stuff's getting out there for the first time. But he talks about that on our podcast. You can go find it and hear the story about how he feels about signing autographs and why he thinks it's special. But as a baseball player, he's an athlete. He is so fun to watch. He's a center fielder. Last year he led the minors in hitting. He won the minor league batting title, hit 346. Ooh. He's been fighting some injuries. He got to Richmond very briefly last year, got hurt, missed the rest of the season. He's been kind of working his way back, getting healthy this year. But he is about as electric of a player as I've seen in a long time. He's a lot of fun to watch play. He's a little older, so if you're listening to some of those, some of the investor podcasts, they're probably going to say, oh, this guy's too old. But he's got a lot still to prove. He's just started playing at the AA level where he's facing some of his own age competition. And but you see a guy hit 346 in the minors, that's pretty special to do no matter what level you're at. And when you actually see him play, he's the type of player that when he gets to the big leagues, that high motor, fast, speedy guy, steals bases, dives for balls in the outfield, can hit home runs a little bit too. That makes for a really fun player, and that's the kind of player that people enjoy watching play. Yeah.
We in the baseball game, in the card game, usually pitchers don't get a lot of run because their values don't hold as position players, especially power hitters. But should mention number 4 prospect in the organization, Landon Roop, is there, as well as number 10 prospect Jose Cruz. So you see anything from those pitchers that would make me change my mind on not buying pitchers?
Yeah, well, Landon Roop doesn't really have any cards yet.
Right.
So it's kind of like with Kyle Harrison, who was here last year. They waited and waited. He had some cards, I think, in like Miners Heritage, but he didn't have his first Bowman until this year. So by the time he got into that set, he was already kind of a dude. He was a guy that everybody was paying attention to. He's a pitcher. Yeah, I know. I love pitchers. So yeah, if y'all don't want them, send them my way, 'cause I'll buy them cheap. But Landon Roop doesn't have his first one yet. It'll probably come at some point soon. He's another one that wasn't really on the radar, kind of like Vaughn Brown. He's a 12th round draft pick, came out of UNC Wilmington, but he's got just a silly curveball. He makes professional hitters at AA look dumb with his curveball. Jose Cruz is on the 40-man roster already. They protected him last year from the Rule 5 draft. We haven't seen a lot of him yet, so not sure exactly what's coming with him, but he's got a big fastball. Everybody loves the velocity. Right. He's probably going to be a reliever, a late inning relief pitcher. And another one that just got here that I think is really exciting is Carson Wisenhunt. Also doesn't have a whole lot of cards out there yet, but those are probably coming. He was just drafted last year, 2nd round pick for the Giants. He's already in AA. He's got one of the most ridiculous changeups I've ever seen. Getting excited about a changeup, it's kind of a weird thing, but he makes guys look pretty foolish with that too. I think he's up to number 6 now for Baseball America, but he just got here. He's only made 2 starts so far, so he's still kind of settling into AA. But that's another one that's he's not on the card scene yet as far as pitchers, as far as the big national releases go. I think he has something from Team USA.
Danny, let me ask you a question really quickly, and Trey, you probably know this as well. But for a novice collector or somebody that's just starting out, there are kind of the Bowman first prospecting. There are the official rookie cards that we see from Topps with the logo on them.
Right.
But then there's some like you said, there's some minor league heritage and some, I guess, pro debut. There's some Topps pro debut cards that aren't not necessarily, they're not considered rookie cards. They're kind of pre-rookie.
Pre-rookie, yeah.
How does that work for like the layman that sees like, last year, I think there's a Bowman draft, Topps pro debut, and then maybe some minor league cards, but then there's the Bowman first, and then the official rookie cards. What's more in the baseball world? What should we be looking for the most?
Well, it's different from when we were kids. When we were kids, all there was the rookie card, and it usually came like out after they got called up, right? So like Barry Bonds gets pulled up in '86, his '87 Topps, '87 Donruss is his rookie card, and there was no minor league cards really to speak of back then of any value. To answer your question, really, Bowman first is thought of as the true rookie. It's the most chased. It's the most valuable. And with the Bowman products, obviously, you have the Bowman first, and you have all the different numbered cards, right? And so to 250 to 99 to 49 to 10 to 1, and so those are, and then you have the sapphire versions and all that. But if people really want to go get someone's first, they'll get their like Bowman first auto, and that's kind of like the rookie that most people think of. I would think rookie cards probably come in second, and then everything else is probably third.
Yeah, they changed it back. The Major League Baseball actually stepped in about 17, 18 years ago when there were still multiple brands making cards of what is the official rookie card. They made that RC logo. And back in the day, it was considered like there was Barry Bonds. You could argue some people would say is 86 traded as the rookie. Some people would say it's his 87 Topps. It was the first one in a full pack release. It wasn't, the tradeds back then came in completed sets, and that was it. So now, you've got the Bowman first. That's usually going to be their first card as a professional, their first licensed card, which I think is a big thing too, because Bowman is a Topps product. They can put the team names on there, which is a big thing, and that's all changing now. And then, we have our own team sets that we do, which just came out, by the way. The 2023 set just came in this week, so they're in now. So you can get Luis Matos in a Squirrels uniform. You can get Patrick Bailey in his Squirrels uniform. Those guys in the big leagues now. But then Topps has the rookie card, which they can't do until a guy has been in the big leagues. So this year you'll see, I think Bailey will probably be in the update set that comes out after the season ends. I don't know what they're going to do with Matos yet. But you have the pro debut sets, which I love because they have them in their minor league uniforms.
Absolutely.
And the Topps Minors Heritage has them in their minor league uniforms. So you can get guys wearing their Squirrels uniform in that set. They're not as high as on the collectability scale, I think, but for people who are just getting the stuff that they like, instead of maybe going for something that they're investing in, I think especially if you're a local fan of the Squirrels, we've got some really cool, Joey Bart's been in that set in recent years, Logan Webb, some guys who've had some major league success. They're in their Flying Squirrels uniforms. So if you're local, that definitely has a little bit more sentimental tie.
Yeah, and I'm probably misspoke a town and said there weren't minor league cards to speak of. There were, but they're exactly what you're talking about, like made by that organization, paper, very paper, and they were like handed out at games and things like that. They weren't made by like Bowman or Topps as a master set like they do now with Bowman. Yeah,
back in the day, I think they just considered the first national release to be a guy's rookie card. So like a Chipper Jones rookie card as well before he got in the big leagues. It was I think some people consider as Bowman. There's also an argument over what's each guy's rookie card back then.
Right.
Now you have, Topps makes so many different brands too. You've got the flagship set that comes out. That's pretty much considered to be the rookie card when the guy gets to the big leagues. But then even in the flagship set, they'll have one for his debut. They'll have maybe a highlight card, something like that. And then you'll also have some of the other sets that they put out, like Heritage, and there are 1,000 other ones, Tribute, and some of the other ones that come out in some of the higher end stuff that have that rookie card logo on there too. So the field has gotten a little bit thick. The waters have gotten a little bit muddied.
Sure. And I would say as a collector, buy whatever you want. As an investor, I would stick to the Bowman first autos, and those are the things that will hold their value and be chased the most. And then obviously the numbered versions of those by far, like those will go for thousands and thousands of dollars depending on the player. So, and I think one other thing to note is if from an investment standpoint and card flipping standpoint, these cards will spike over time and drop off over time, and some of it's performance driven, a lot of it's hype driven. It's a little bit of both. Performance sometimes begets hype, but the hype of moving from single A to double A, for example, like we're talking about maybe Jackson Holiday. Let's look at him. He got drafted first, right? So he very famous prospect. So right when his first card came out in the 2022 draft product, people were chasing it. And then if you don't hear from him for a while, his values might drop. And then he gets pulled up. Like you think he might get pulled up from single A to double A soon.
I think it's a chance, yeah.
Then when that happens, he'll probably have a little pop in value.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, when you get called up to the majors, if there's any hype around it, like Ellie De La Cruz recently, tremendous price spike. And then if I held a bunch of his cards, I sold them all when he got pulled up, and I might wait because they'll probably come back down. And then it'll take a while for his cards to spike again. J-Rod, for example, when he got pulled up, his card spiked more when he got pulled up and when he won the home run derby than when he actually won the rookie of the year. Like his cards barely went up in value. So he has to do a lot now to keep that ascension of his prices. The getting called up hype might be the best for most of these guys. So with that in mind, let's look at some folks that are coming to town soon. We're lucky enough. We're going to name some big names here, some big prospects. So let's start with the Harrisburg Senators. They come to town. This is the affiliate of the Nats. They come to town June 20th through the 25th. There's two names I want to talk about. The number 1 and the number 7 prospects in the Nats organization. And I think both of these guys came over from the Padres as part of the Soto trade. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
They did, yeah.
Both of them did. So James Wood is the number 1 prospect, an outfielder. And everything that I hear leads me to believe he's getting pulled up pretty soon. And then Robert Hassel, the number 7 guy, that's a guy that had a lot of hype about a year ago. Less hype today. His actually values are down. I actually bought both of these guys in the last 48 hours. Everything I hear about Hassel is a tremendous kind of freakish athlete that if and when he gets called up will be a lot of fun to watch. But I don't know if it's injury. I don't know if it's performance. But in the last 6 months, you haven't heard as much from this guy. So do you have any insight into these two guys?
Yeah, I'd say let's start with Hassel because I've seen him play.
Yeah.
He came up last year to Double-A with Harrisburg and great athlete. A lot of times that's not the thing that's going to get people as excited, but if he's a guy who's out there, he's a Gold Glove outfielder. I don't know that that's what he's going to be, but that'll be something that people get excited about. But we talked earlier about Double-A is a little bit make or break, and some guys struggle when they get here. There's an adjustment period. He missed the start of this year, so maybe he's not all the way back at 100% yet, but keep in mind, too, the age. This is a tough league to hit in. So if you look at his offensive numbers, they're going to be low. The league average, batting average in this league is only 240, 238. The league OPS average is well under 800. So if you're doing anything above that, you're doing very well. And he's been a little bit just under the league average in batting average so far. OPS is definitely lower, but he's not a power guy anyway. He's very young for the level. He's only 21 years old. He's a contact hitter, so the average is going to kind of be the thing that carries him. He's still got a lot of time to prove what he can do just being 21. And then James Wood, we haven't seen him play yet. We'll see him in Richmond here this week. But
so this will be the first time that he comes to town? Yeah,
this will be the first time we've seen him.
Gotcha.
First of all, he's got some local ties. His dad was a basketball player at the University of Richmond. So for those of y'all locally, that's obviously, it adds a little bit more. His dad was a great basketball player there. He was on the team when they beat Syracuse, became the first 15 to beat a 2 in the NCAA tournament back in the day. But as far as he goes, he's the type of guy that people like to get excited about. He's big. Right. He's very athletic. Grew up in a basketball family, obviously, but he's 6'6" or 6'7", depending on where you look. So people will sometimes look at guys. He's 20 years old. Let's get back to the age thing. He's 20. He's playing in Double-A. So he's 4 or 5 years under the league average. He's playing against guys who've been in the big leagues, guys who've been in the minors for a while. And he's only played 18 games Double-A at the time that we're taping this. It's hitting 243. It's above the league average. OPS is just right at 800. So that's on the higher side of this league. But again, he's 20. And I think that the thing people are going to look for with him is going to be the home runs. And a lot of scouts will tell you, I talk to scouts all the time, that's the last thing that's usually going to develop. So if you see a guy who's hitting a lot of doubles, that's probably a good sign for more power down the road. Baseball America has his power graded as 65 on the 2080 scale. That's pretty high. They said they see him as a 30 to 35 home run player when he gets to the big leagues. If that holds to be true, you've got a pretty good star there, especially for the Nationals who need some help with the thump. They don't have a lot of it right now. But a big guy, very athletic, could be a lot of fun to play. He's not quite the size of Aaron Judge. He's a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller. But we're seeing more of those big guys being athletic outfielders. Used to be you'd have to anchor them to first base somewhere. I'm really excited to see him play with Harrisburg. I hope he doesn't have too much success. I want to see the Squirrels do well. But at the same time, it's cool to see these fun prospects come through, and both those guys are definitely some guys with some hype.
Gotcha. So, Cheats, what Major League Baseball team do you root for?
I'm pretty local and regional, so the Orioles are the American League team, and then the Nationals are my.
So you're for the Nats.
Yeah.
So have you heard much about this Wood kid?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so the the interesting thing about loaded prospects, they usually play for bad organizations, and I'm not saying that the Nationals are overall a bad organization, but they're a team that has
right now.
They have a lot of young players, right? And they need a lot of work. And at the end of the day, because of that Soto trade that you just mentioned,
right,
I'd be interested to see 4 years from now and who we are going to say won that trade, because you've got two names that are kind of up in the big leagues right now with Mackenzie Gore and CJ Abrams that were in that trade as well.
Right.
CJ Abrams is 22 years old, and he's a starting shortstop. And so the interesting thing, one of the most exciting things about baseball in the spring this year in spring training was the Washington Nationals, because you saw Assell, Elijah Green, Wood up with the other guys that we mentioned in his trades. And so I think there's a good chance, when you make a trade for a Juan Soto type player, you get 6 or 7 players back. You're only hoping for 3 or 4 of them to hit, right? Yeah. I think when you're looking at a guy like Wood, he's got a real high ceiling. At 20 years old, he started the season at A-ball. He gets called up, and he seems to be hitting. He seems to be hitting, making contact, and doing the things that he needs to do. So I'm really excited to see him in Richmond this week. I'm not down on Hassell. I think Hassell's, again, you're talking about the age, you're talking about his athleticism, and like Trey just mentioned, I don't think anybody's projecting him to be a 30 home run hitter, but power is one of the things that comes later. Kind of grown man strength comes later in life once you've figured out a lot of the other things in life. And I'm really high on all of them, including if you want to go to up 95 a little bit, and you talk about some of the guys that are in Fredericksburg and the Fredericksburg Nationals as well, which is their A-ball affiliate, not their high, but their regular A-ball affiliate. Right. And you see Elijah Green there, and you see some really interesting names there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. As a card shop owner, and because we're close to DC, people come in all the time, local Nats fans, and they ask about James Wood. They ask about CJ Abrams. I don't hear as much about Robert Hassell. And but everything else I read about him on these other podcasts and listen to on other podcasts leads me to believe that maybe there's a bargain to be had there, because if no one's talking about him, his prices are down. As
somebody who has a hand in helping run social, I will say let him have 2 hot weeks.
Right.
And he'll be everywhere. I mean, we see it now. Like, nobody was talking about Luciano. He was adjusting to the year still. He's still working his way in. And then he went off for about 5 days. Yeah. And our social media, just every other tweet was call him up. It was, he's still got some work to do. Yeah. But just it's such a volatile thing with prospects when they get a couple of hot days, and you'll see their name popping up left and right.
That's awesome. Yeah. In preparation of this, I looked and saw his last 10 days. He's batting 460 or something silly.
Hassell?
No,
Luciano. Yeah. He had about 5 days where I think he was everything that he saw coming to the plate looked like a beach ball, and he was hitting it a mile. So
yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next team coming to town, the Bowie Bay Sox Orioles affiliate, coming July 4th through the 9th. Speaking of organizations with tons of young prospects, Cheats, the Orioles are freaking loaded, really loaded at the major league level with young guys, but also throughout the farm system.
It's an exciting time.
Oh my God,
it's a long time coming.
Yeah,
but it's an exciting time. The fact that they're playing really well at the big club at the major league level. They're playing. Some of those guys that we've talked about for a long time, like Trey mentioned, some of these guys you feel like you've just heard over and over again. Adley Rutschman is a guy that
it hasn't really been that long. It hasn't a couple of years ago.
But doesn't it feel like we've been hearing the Adley Rutschman name?
Prospect fatigue.
And I think it's a little bit less. So because Rutschman is who he is, and I mean, even coming out of the draft, they knew kind of Rutschman was going to be a dude. Coming out of college as well. I think he was a top overall draft pick.
Yeah.
And he's now proving, I think, everything that we thought he was going to be.
Right.
Right after that, you've got a guy like Gunnar Henderson,
right,
who if you weren't talking about Rutschman, you were talking about Henderson, and now he's up and starting and doing well in the big leagues. But there are some names not just that are coming with Bowie, but there are some names that are in Norfolk as well.
Right.
They're still trying to find their side. You heard a lot about Grayson Rodriguez.
Yep.
You heard a lot about Rodriguez, and he's been up, he's been down, he's been up, he's been down. You're going to find that. Right. There's another guy, Cal Stores. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear. I mean, there's just DL Hall is in Norfolk. Like, there's just so many. I'm going to mess up the name. Is it Jerkstad?
It's Heston Kjerstad. We saw way too much of him earlier this year.
Right. But, I mean, the Orioles organization is loaded from top to bottom, and I'm excited to when Bowie comes to
so
Richmond.
Where's he now? Is he in AAA now?
Kjerstad's in AAA. Okay. Yeah, he started the year in Bowie. Yeah, that's the thing with the Orioles is for a long time, they've had a few years where they've been competitive. They won the East in 2014.
Right.
But they've always been kind of in rebuild mode. So they've had all these prospects come through, and for a while, they weren't really panning out. Or if they were panning out with other organizations.
Right.
Look at Jake Arrieta and Zach Britton and some of those guys.
Right.
But with this wave, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Ryan Mountcastle, Grayson Rodriguez. We've seen all these guys here in this league. And even we talked earlier about like David Villar not really being a guy who was on the prospect list, and he's still got a lot to show in the big leagues. But Cedric Mullins, when he came through this league, he wasn't really one of those top prospects, and now he's an all-star. He's been an all-star in the major leagues.
Right.
With Bowie, we saw Heston Kjerstad earlier this year. He did very well. He got a quick bump up to AAA, also very young. And they've got some guys still that are with the Bay Sox that we just saw last week, and we'll see again at the Diamond soon. Yeah.
So one that we hope will be pulled up soon so we could see him is Holiday. Obviously, he's a mega name because of his father, because of his draft capital, and he's seems to be playing well. So you said you've heard that he might be pulled up.
I haven't heard anything on the record, anything official, but you're just looking at how well he's doing.
Yeah.
He breezed through low A this year with Delmarva. He's doing very well in high A right now with Aberdeen. I wouldn't be shocked if he's moved at some point soon, but he's also so young. Was
he 18?
Yeah, he's a high school draft pick, right? He's 18 or 19 years old. So,
he looks like a child on his baseball.
I think he's 18.
It wouldn't be unprecedented, but it would definitely be rare. But it wouldn't by the time they got to town, if I saw his name on the roster, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying
buy some tickets now anyway, just in case.
Yeah,
right?
squirrelsbaseball.com/tickets. It's not. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm saying but I would say that it's a possibility.
Gotcha.
They want to keep moving him along.
And if you're listening to this, what would you say if you're listening to this 3 years in the future?
Yeah.
There's only a matter of time before you hear the name Ethan Holiday as well. So, did you hear about this? His younger brother is a top high school prospect as well, and it's coming. He's I think he's bigger than Jackson, and he said he's coming.
Oh wow, how about that? Okay, well, one guy that's most likely to be on the roster at that point is their number 4 prospect in the Royals organization, outfielder Kobe Mayo. Any thoughts on this guy?
Unfortunately, yeah. So we just saw them on the road up in Bowie last week, and we mentioned Rutschman, Henderson, Mountcastle, some of the guys who are having success in the big leagues now. Mayo could very well be the next one. Still very young for the level, which I know we've talked about a few times here. As a high school draft pick a couple of years ago out of Florida. And he's hitting right now in a very tough hitter league. He's hitting 295. OPS is close to 1,000. He's already got 11 home runs in just 60 games. Unfortunately, we saw 3 of them in a row last week, including he had a walk-off home run against the Squirrels the other night. He looked pretty good. He's big too. He doesn't look like he's as young as he is. He's a specimen out there. They had him playing in a few different defensive spots. I think they'll figure out where he kind of lands, or as we're seeing in baseball these days, especially with us being a Giants affiliate, everybody's playing everywhere. So you don't have to figure out as much of that defensive question these days as you used to. It's just a matter of, are they going to hit? And he's doing that right now in a league that's not usually very easy to hit in. So now, granted, their ballpark is a little bit more hitter friendly. So the park factors you take into account too. Mm-hmm. I think, Bowie's ballpark is one of the easiest places to hit in this league. It's shallow. It has a big green forest right behind it, so the guys can see the ball coming out of the pitcher's hands well. Mm-hmm. But he's doing it home and away, and he should be here. I would think when they come back to town in a few weeks, he might be in Norfolk by then. The way the Orioles are moving guys, I have no idea, but yeah, there's a chance we'll see Mayo again.
Nice.
And hopefully he doesn't have as good of a week.
Hopefully. All right, let's cover one more series. This is about a month out. The Portland Sea Dogs, Red Sox organization, coming to town July 25th through the 30th. Definitely one huge name that we want to talk about, and that's the number one guy in their organization as far as prospects go, and that's their shortstop, Marcelo Mayer. Any thoughts on this guy?
We haven't seen him yet, but we've obviously been seeing his name coming for a while. Fans in Virginia, probably a lot of them, if they make the road trips, probably saw him with Salem, where the Red Sox have their low A team now. They've moved everything around. I think that Salem's low A now. They might be high A. Greenville's high A, I think. So
sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything got shuffled around. I used to know them all by heart. I forget some of them now, but he was with Salem last year. He's up to Double A now, and again, 20 years old. Talk about age for the level. He's only played 16 games with Portland so far. He's only hitting 161, but he's the number 4 overall prospect in baseball, top of the Red Sox. Anytime you've got that Boston logo attached to you, there's going to be a little bit more hype with it, just like with the Yankees. They're one of those premium teams. And they say he's a great defensive player. They say he's a good contact hitter with a little bit of power potential. So that's a good formula there. It's hard to judge off of just looking at stats from a couple of weeks in Double A. By the time they get here, I think we'll have a little bit better idea. But again, I mentioned it earlier, this is the make or break level in the minor leagues. This is the level where you really are going to set your path going forward. And sometimes it can take 6-8 weeks or sometimes even a year for guys to make that adjustment to facing this level of competition.
I think the interesting thing about Mayer that stood out for me was he's the number 4 overall draft pick in the 2021 draft. And around that time was probably the first time I really started watching. It was one of the first years that MiLB network put the full rounds on and did like draft analysts like other leagues. Mm-hmm. And one of the things you learn in particular about the Major League Baseball draft is unlike any other draft you've ever heard of. Basically, clubs have allotted numbers of dollars they can spend. Mm-hmm. And there's all of these negotiations because players can go to college. They could go back to college. There's just so many different things. The interesting thing about Mayer that came out in 2021 was, if it was like a traditional draft, like, you just kind of draft the best player without worrying about slotting and costs and so forth, he would have probably gone higher than 4.
Right.
Everybody was talking about this kid at the draft tables. Like, this guy is a natural and a can't miss. Mm-hmm. And because, different, like I said, different clubs at different times, they draft folks and they might want to save some money to sign another kid later. And a lot of that happens in the baseball draft. But this kid, everybody in the draft room was saying this guy's a can't miss kid. Yeah. And he seems so far to be on a trajectory to, he hasn't had any kind of hiccups so far. He's an exciting player to watch.
Yeah, and I watched the draft last year with a different set of eyes, being in the card world, looking at it more like historically. I would watch the NFL draft, the NBA draft, and I would glance over the baseball draft. Sure. Right? But mainly as a kid, because you're impatient. Like, why would I watch a draft? Because I'm not going to hear about these guys for 3 more years. Why do I care? Right? And most of the guys that get drafted might not make it anyway, because baseball is such a potluck as far as who gets from the draft to actually to the major. Sure. There's a lot of variance. So I watched the draft last year, and I was amazed at the first 10 picks. I think it was like 6 guys of the first 10, their father played in the majors. Yep. You had Holiday, you had Crawford, you had a few more. And I thought that's interesting, going kind of tying it back to the Black Baseball Mixtape, and then the group Kids on First organization that you and I know and that we're starting to support is, getting exposed to something gives you a much greater chance of success at it, right? And can I assume that that's a big part of what you're trying to do is bring awareness to it so that more kids get exposed to baseball? Yeah, absolutely. And it's more of a kind of fandom thing. Yeah. And for us, and we want kids to play. We want kids to play at every level. We want kids to have accessibility to play. There are tons of organizations, one of them being the Major League Baseball Players Alliance, and programs like RBI that help kids play. Right. One of the things that I'm always concerned about as a fan is when I go to stadiums, when I go to the Diamond is actually an anomaly in many ways, because the Diamond is one of the most diverse ballparks that I go to consistently, and I see all kinds of Richmonders. It really is a microcosm of Richmond, and that's what we love so much about the Diamond. Right. But you go to other stadiums, especially when you go to pro stadiums, and you look around and you're like, not only are there not many black players on the field, not a lot of black people in the stands. Right. And there's not a lot of incentive for organizations to say, hey, let's do some things that would be a little bit more inclusive, because they're looking around at their bottom line and saying, they're kind of not here anyway. Right. And one of the things I looked at was, what are we talking about in our culture, and what are we talking about in our communities? And especially in my barbershop, they're going to lead with football. They're going to lead with basketball.
and very, there might be a handful of players that know baseball.
Right.
But when you kind of start talking about it, you start bringing it into kind of this 2023 age with podcasts and social media and doing certain things. And you start to look at who's playing and how exciting some of these players are. And you start talking about it openly and having conversations around it and building events around it. Then you start to see people come back to the game or have. So I in the last 10 months, if I had $1 for every person that pulled me to the side and said, man, I really rock with baseball. I just don't have anybody to talk to it with.
Right.
And so those types of things get us so excited. And when you talked about last year's draft, it was unprecedented in the I want to say 6 out of the top 10 picks might have been people of color. In from Tamar Johnson to Elijah Green and Drew Jones. And it was just like it's been really, really exciting to see a lot of people latch on to these younger players that may not be in the major leagues for a couple years, but now they're starting to become household names. People are starting to understand who Drew Jones is.
Right.
People are starting to see. There was a documentary that Undisputed did, which was Spring Hill Undisputed, which is LeBron James's company of Maverick Carter. They did a 2-part documentary on last year's draft, just focused on black players.
Right.
So they're following R.J. Austin, who ultimately went to Vanderbilt, and so now these kids are starting to get some of that treatment, just a little bit, not much.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but they're starting to get some of that treatment when you can talk about baseball on a First Take or a Pivot podcast or something that really kind of drives the conversation for culture.
Right.
And we feel really, really excited at BBM and I'm just to be a small part of what we think is the ground floor of what's going to come. And I think what's going to come is more exciting play. Like the World Baseball Classic did wonders for fandom, fandom.
Yeah.
And I know Trey was at some of those games, which is so exciting.
It was awesome.
It was so, but just to hear people talk, even before the baseball season started, about, the Dominican Republic playing in Puerto Rico in Miami, and USA playing Mexico, and who's on those teams.
Right.
And from a BBM standpoint, Tim Anderson, Cedric Mullins, Devin Williams, these guys were on the team.
Right.
So it was like really awesome to see. And the bottom line is to get more people talking about the game, get more fans talking about the game, get more people of color showing up to the games and supporting players and getting just awareness that, hey, black players play this game too, and they're at every level. They're not just in the major leagues, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Man, this has been a blast. Really enjoyed having you guys on. Before we close here, did anybody else that you guys want to talk about? Did we cover the main dudes coming to Richmond over the next month?
I think that we have a lot of exciting Squirrels players, definitely to keep an eye on. We talked through some of the big hitters. I think that there are also some guys coming that we haven't seen yet. So if you're in the cards, like Grant McCrae, I think we'll see him at some point. He had his first Bowman a couple of years ago. He's in Eugene right now, which is a level right below Richmond. And then we always pull for the guys, even once they leave the Giants organization. Caleb Killian got traded for Chris Bryant last year. He's been in the big leagues with the Chicago Cubs. He's got his rookie card in this year's Top Series 1. Bryce Johnson's another former Squirrel. He's still with the Giants. He's got his rookie card in Top Series 2 this year. David Villar's rookie card is in Top Series 1. So we keep track of these guys once they go down the road, and I certainly do. Getting to know these guys while they're here, I pull for them for the rest of their careers. The guys that played for the teams that I was with before, I try to keep an eye on what they're doing. And it's one of the cool things about the minor leagues is getting to see these guys when they come through. So there's a really talented bunch of players right now in Richmond and a really talented group coming behind. The Giants have made some great strides in player development. And of course, the Giants are doing well in the big leagues right now, too. So we love watching Luis Matos and Casey Schmidt and Patrick Bailey and Logan Webb having success in the major leagues. And one of the original Squirrels, Brandon Crawford, who I think at this point has been a superstar. So, yeah, come out to the games. Get to know these guys' stories. Listen to our broadcasts. You're going to learn a lot about them. And you're going to have that tie with them as they go on and follow. It's so fun to follow this journey. So if you're collecting It gives you a little bit more than just like I'm buying this and selling it and moving this and doing that, but you've got some things that you can have a sentimental tie to, and it makes it a lot more fun when you can have some pieces. Maybe make yourself a collection you put over here and off to the side and say, these are for me. These might not buy me a new truck, but these are some cool things that I have.
Yeah, for me, I try to balance how am I an investor, am I a collector, or am I both? And the way I solve that in my brain is go ahead and buy 3 Marco Lucianos now. When he gets pulled up, sell 2 of them, keep 1 forever.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it.
And you can make a little money and have a little fun. All right, well, if you're in the Richmond area or anywhere within driving distance, again, if you listen to this 2 years from now, these are the guys. If you don't come see the Squirrels play, you're going to miss these folks over the next month and a half. Marco Luciano, Vaughn Brown, James Wood, Robert Hassel, Kobe Mayo, maybe Jackson Holiday, Marcelo Mayer. I think you will regret not coming watching these guys play, or at least listening to Trey talk about them on the radio. But Cheats and Trey, really enjoyed this. Thank you guys both for coming out and doing this, and I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, take care, guys. Thank you.
When I go to sleep, I don't see sheep, see dollar signs. $100 got him beat the eyes for the 100th time at a money line. Brock Purdy was irrelevant, now I'm at the front like a cutting line. G5 to the power 5, grade was on fire like it's summertime. I know they watching, I'ma make them sweat. Put your money down, place your bets. Degenerate, yeah, I'm a sicko. Who else gon' get you to the window? I know they watching, I'ma make them sweat. Put your money down, place your bets. Degenerate, yeah, I'm a sicko. Who else gon' get you to the window?